I didn't go on that weekend trip expecting my best friend to tell me he'd been lying to me for years. I went because my head was a mess, my sleep was shit, and I needed to get out of my apartment before I did something stupid, like text my ex or spiral for the thousandth time over things I couldn't fix. And honestly, if someone had told me that by Sunday night we'd be sitting on a cold dock in the dark while he confessed everything he'd been holding back, I would have laughed in their face. But that's getting ahead of myself. It started with a text from him on a Wednesday afternoon. "You want to get out of town this weekend? Just drive, no plans, just us." That was it. No emojis, no explanation, just him. Evan and I had been best friends since sophomore year of college, roommates at first, then just constant, same routines, same jokes, same late night drives when one of us couldn't sleep. He was the person I trusted without thinking, the one I called when everything else felt too loud. Which is also why he was the one person I never let myself want. I told myself I was over that whatever crush I'd had back then had burned out somewhere between him dating girls and me learning how to compartmentalize my feelings like a pro. Best friends don't cross lines, especially when one of them is definitely straight, especially when you don't want to lose the one stable thing in your life. So when I read that text, I didn't think romantic getaway. I thought, yeah, I need this. We left early Saturday morning. Evan picked me up in his old SUV. Coffee, already in the cup holder for me, the way he always did. Same order. He never asked anymore. "You look like hell," he said casually as I got in. "Good morning to you too," I replied, buckling up. He smirked, glanced at me for half a second longer than necessary, then pulled away from the curb. "Rough week?" "Rough month," I said. "Maybe year." He nodded, like that tracked, like he already knew. The drive was quiet at first. Not awkward, just comfortable silence. Trees blurring past the windows. Music low. The kind of quiet you only get with someone who doesn't demand small talk to fill space. About an hour in, he finally spoke. "I didn't really have a destination in mind." "That makes two of us," I said. "As long as there's somewhere to sleep and beer nearby, I'm good." He laughed softly. "There's a cabin my uncle lets me use sometimes. Near a lake. It's nothing fancy." That should have been my first clue. Evan didn't do impulsive, without a reason. The cabin was small, wooden, a little worn down in a way that made it feel real instead of Pinterest perfect. One bedroom, one couch, a dock stretching out into the lake like it didn't care who showed up or why. I remember standing there with my bag slung over my shoulder, taking it all in and thinking, this feels too intimate for a guy's weekend. But I shoved that thought down, same as always. We spent the afternoon doing nothing, unpacking, sitting outside, drinking cheap beer, talking about work, about stupid shit, about nothing important at all. Except every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, not checking me out, not exactly, just watching. That night, after the sun went down and the lake turned black and quiet, we sat on the porch with a blanket thrown over our legs. It was colder than I expected. Or maybe I was just more aware of how close he was. "Thanks for coming," he said suddenly. I glanced at him. "You okay?" He hesitated, just a beat too long. "Yeah, I just needed this. Needed you here." My chest tightened at that, and I hated how much it did. "Me too," I said carefully. He nodded, jaw tight, like he wanted to say something else but wasn't ready yet. At the time, I thought that was the moment. I didn't realize it was just the beginning. I slept like shit that night. Not because the couch was uncomfortable, though it definitely was, but because my brain wouldn't shut up. The cabin creaked every time the wind picked up. The lake made these soft, rhythmic sounds against the dock, and Evan was in the bedroom down the hall, separated from me by maybe 10 feet of thin wood, and a whole lot of things we didn't say. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. I didn't open my eyes right away. just listened. The steps stopped. There was a pause. Then I heard the fridge open and close, the quiet clink of a bottle cap. More silence. And then, softly, my name. Hey. I rolled onto my back and finally looked over. Evan was standing there in the dim light from the kitchen, barefoot, holding 2 beers. You awake? He asked. Yeah, I said, voice rough. Couldn't sleep. Same. He hesitated, then held one out to me. Mind if I sit? I shrugged. It's your couch. He smiled at that, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. He sat on the edge, close enough that our knees almost touched, and for a second, neither of us said anything. Just drank. Just existed in the quiet. I used to come out here a lot after college, he said eventually, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life. Did it help? Sometimes, he said. Mostly it just made things louder in my head. That made me laugh softly. Yeah, same. He glanced at me then, really looked at me, and something about his expression made my stomach flip. Not desire. Not yet. Nervousness. I almost didn't invite you, he admitted. I frowned. Why? He took a long sip of his beer, like he was buying himself time. Because I was worried I'd say something I couldn't take back. That landed heavier than I expected. About? I started. About me, he said quickly. About stuff I haven't really dealt with? I wanted to ask more. I really did. But years of being careful around Evan kicked in automatically. You don't have to, I said. We can just be out here. That was kind of the point, right? He nodded, but his jaw tightened again. Yeah, right. We sat there until the beers were empty and the night started to thin out into early morning. At some point, he stood and stretched, rubbing a hand over his face. You can take the bed tomorrow night, he said. I'll crash out here, I scoffed. No chance. I'm fine. Dude, you're folded like a pretzel. Adds character. That actually got a real laugh out of him, and for a second, things felt normal again. The next day was easier. We swam in the lake, cooked shitty food, talked more, laughed more. But under everything, there was this tension humming between us. Quiet but constant, like we were both circling something we didn't know how to touch. That evening, the weather turned fast. Clouds rolled in, heavy and low, and by the time we'd cleaned up dinner, rain was pounding against the roof. The power flickered once, then went out completely. Great, Evan muttered. Perfect horror movie setup. I snorted. Relax. If someone gets murdered, it's definitely me. We lit candles, the cabin glowing warm and uneven, shadows dancing across the walls. We ended up on the couch again, closer this time, the storm loud enough outside that it felt like the world had shrunk down to just us in this room. Can I ask you something? Evan said suddenly. I didn't look at him. Sure. Have you ever felt like you were playing a version of yourself that made everyone else comfortable? That made my chest tighten for an entirely different reason. Yeah, I said quietly. Every day. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for years. I think that's why I asked you to come, he said. Because you're the only person who ever made me feel like I didn't have to do that. I turned to him then. Candlelight caught his face, softer than I was used to seeing it. Evan? I said carefully. What are you trying to say? He swallowed. I think, he said, voice barely above the rain, I'm tired of lying. And for the first time since we arrived, I knew, really knew, that whatever he was about to confess was going to change everything. The rain didn't let up. If anything, it got heavier, drumming against the roof so hard it felt like the cabin was breathing with it. Evan stared straight ahead, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together like if he let go, everything would spill out all at once. I didn't rush him. That's something I'd learned with him over the years. Evan talked when he was ready, not a second before. I don't even know where to start, he finally said. Then don't, I replied gently. Just say what's easiest. He let out a short, humorless laugh. None of it's easy. He shifted, turning slightly toward me, but his eyes stayed fixed on the candle flame flickering on the table between us. You know how everyone thinks they know me? I nodded. Yeah, you don't exactly hide much. That's the thing, he said. I hide the one thing that actually matters. My pulse started to pick up, slow but steady, like my body already knew where this was headed, even if my brain didn't want to accept it. I've spent my whole life doing what I'm supposed to, he continued. Dating the right girls, saying the right things, being normal. His mouth twisted at the word. And every time I told myself, this is it, this is who you are, something felt off. He finally looked at me then. Really looked at me. And then there was you. My throat went dry. Me? You made it worse, he said softly. Then, quickly, not in a bad way, just clearer. I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. When we met, I felt this pull, he said, like I wanted to be around you all the time. Like you saw me in a way no one else ever had. And I told myself it was just friendship. Because that was safer. Because that made sense. I forced myself to breathe evenly. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. But it didn't go away, he said. It never did. Silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Outside, thunder cracked, close enough to rattle the windows. I swallowed. Evan, are you saying? I'm saying I'm not straight. He cut in, voice shaking now. At least not the way I have pretended to be. There it was. Not dramatic, not explosive, just honest. I leaned back slightly, not because I wanted distance, but because I needed air. Years of buried feelings surged up at once. Relief, fear, hope, grief, for all the moments that could have been different. How long have you known? I asked quietly. He shook his head. That's the thing. I don't know. I think I've always known something was different. But admitting it? To myself? He scoffed softly. That took longer. And inviting me here? I asked. His jaw tightened. I needed to tell you. Because I couldn't keep pretending around you anymore. And because if I didn't say it now, I was scared I never would. I stared at the candle again, watching the flame bend and recover. My voice came out steadier than I felt. You know I'm gay. I know, he said immediately. I've always known. That surprised me. You have? Yeah, he said. You never really hid it from me. You just waited for me to catch up. Something in my chest cracked open at that. Evan, I said slowly, choosing every word with care. I need to know what this means. For you. For us. He shifted closer, close enough that I could feel the heat from his body. I don't know what I am yet, he admitted. I don't know what label fits. But I know that what I feel for you isn't just friendship. And it hasn't been for a long time. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. And you? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Do you feel anything like that? I closed my eyes for a second. Years of restraint, of protecting both of us, pressed against my ribs. Yes, I said. I always have. He exhaled sharply, like the breath had been trapped in him for years. Then why didn't you ever? Because you were my best friend, I said. And because I thought wanting you meant losing you. His hand twitched, like he wanted to reach for me but wasn't sure he was allowed to. I don't want to lose you, he said. Neither do I. The rain softened outside, but inside, everything felt on the verge of something new, something fragile and terrifying and real. Neither of us moved. Neither of us had to. I don't know how long we sat there like that, close enough to feel each other's warmth, far enough to still pretend we had control. Time felt warped, like the cabin existed outside of it, suspended between what we were and what we were about to become. Evan broke first. I'm scared, he said quietly. That didn't surprise me. If anything, it grounded the moment. Evan had always been brave in practical ways. Jobs, moves, responsibility. Emotional risk was another thing entirely. Me too, I admitted. He let out a shaky breath and leaned back, dragging a hand through his hair. I keep thinking, what if we mess this up? What if we cross the line and everything changes and we can't go back? I met his eyes. It already changed, he swallowed. But that doesn't mean it has to break, I continued. It just means we don't pretend anymore. That seemed to land. His shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. I've never said this out loud, he said. Not to anyone. And now that I have, it feels like I can't shove it back down again. You shouldn't, I said. Trust me. I tried that. It only makes things worse. He gave a weak smile. Figures you'd be better at this than me. Years of practice, I said dryly. We both laughed softly, and that laugh, quiet, real, did more to ease the tension than anything else could have. The storm outside finally started to die down. Rain softened into a light patter. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was expectant. Evan shifted again, closer this time. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us pulled away. Can I ask you something else? He said. Yeah. When did you know? He asked. About me. I hesitated, then decided there was no point holding back now. I didn't know, I said, but I suspected. The way you looked at me sometimes. The way you'd get weird when people assumed I was into someone else. The way you never really talked about the girls you dated. He winced slightly. I thought I was being subtle, I snorted. You're about as subtle as a brick. That got a real laugh out of him, the kind that crinkled his eyes. God, I'd miss seeing him like that, unguarded. And you? He asked. When did you start feeling something? I didn't dodge it. Pretty much from the beginning. His expression softened. That long? Yeah, I said. But I made peace with it. Or I thought I did. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for putting you in that position without knowing. You didn't, I said. I chose to stay, because you mattered more. That seemed to hit him hard. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers like he was grounding himself. I don't want to hurt you, he said. Then don't lie to me, I replied. That's all I need. He nodded. Okay. Another pause. His knee brushed mine this time. Barely, but the contact sent a jolt through me that I couldn't ignore anymore. I could feel the question hanging between us, unspoken but loud. What happens now? He asked. I considered it. Not just what I wanted, but what we both could handle. Now, I said slowly, we don't rush. We don't pretend this didn't happen. And we don't do anything we can't talk about after. He studied my face. You're really calm about this, I shrugged. I've imagined this conversation 100 times, just never thought it would actually happen. His lips parted slightly at that. And in those imaginings, he said carefully, did it ever go like this? I met his gaze, heart pounding. Sometimes. The air shifted. Something fragile but undeniable settled between us. Evan lifted his hand, hesitated, then let it rest on the couch between us. Palm up, an offering, not a demand. I looked at it for a long second. Then I placed my hand in his. He took a sharp breath, like he hadn't expected me to say yes so quickly. That's okay? He asked. It is, I said. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, tentative, reverent. That small, simple touch carried more weight than anything overt ever could. Neither of us kissed. Not yet. But in that moment, sitting in the quiet aftermath of a storm, hands tangled together, I knew we were past the point of pretending this was just a weekend trip. And there was no going back. We didn't let go of each other right away. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden pull, no rush. Just two hands resting together like they'd always belonged there, and were only now being acknowledged. Evan's thumb kept tracing the same slow line over my skin, over and over, like he was memorizing the feeling in case it disappeared. I didn't expect it to feel like this, he admitted quietly. Like what? Calm, he said. Terrifying, yeah, but also right. That word hit me harder than I expected. Yeah, I said. I know what you mean. Eventually, practicality crept back in. The candles were burning low. It was late. Emotionally, we'd both run a marathon. We should probably sleep, Evan said reluctantly. Probably. I agreed, even though part of me didn't want the night to end. He hesitated, then added, "You can take the bed tonight. I mean it." I studied his face. He wasn't trying to push me away. He was giving me space, real space, because he cared. "How about we flip for it?" I suggested. He smiled faintly. "Still avoiding decisions, huh?" "Still bad at them," I said. In the end, we compromised. I took the bed. He took the couch. It felt safer, for now, but sleep didn't come easily. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. His voice when he admitted it. The look on his face when I took his hand. The weight of possibility pressing down on my chest in the best and worst way. Sometime later, no idea how long, I heard the couch creak. "Hey," Evan whispered from the doorway. I rolled onto my side. "Yeah? Can I?" He gestured vaguely, like even he didn't know what he was asking. I sat up, heart racing again. "What's up?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I can't sleep. My brain won't shut off." "Mine either," I admitted. He lingered there, half lit by moonlight through the window. Vulnerable, uncertain. "Do you want company?" I asked carefully. "Just sleep." He searched my face for any sign of expectation, pressure. I gave him none. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think I do." We lay on opposite sides of the bed at first, backs flat, a careful gap between us. The silence wasn't awkward, just charged. After a few minutes, he shifted. "Is this okay?" he asked, inching closer. "Yeah," I said. Another inch, then another, until his arm brushed mine. Neither of us moved away. Eventually, he rolled onto his side, facing me. I could feel his breath, slow and warm. He didn't touch me, not really, but the closeness was intimate in a way that made my chest ache. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For not pushing," he said. "For not making this something I'm not ready for." I smiled in the dark. "You don't owe me anything. We go at your pace." He nodded, then surprised me by reaching out, hesitant, gentle, and resting his hand against my side, like he needed that contact to anchor himself. I covered his hand with mine. We stayed like that, breathing in sync, the world quiet around us. No kiss, no rush, just the undeniable truth settling in between us. Whatever we were becoming, it mattered enough to do it right. By morning, the storm would be gone, and we'd have to face what this meant outside the safety of that cabin. But for that night, it was enough to just be there together. Morning came quietly. No alarm, no rush, just pale light slipping through the thin curtains and the soft sound of the lake outside. Gentle and steady, like it had no idea what kind of emotional wreckage it had hosted overnight. I woke up first. Evan was still asleep, lying on his side facing me, his hand resting where I'd left it. Fingers relaxed against my shirt, like his body trusted me, even if his mind was still catching up. His face looked different like this. Softer, younger, unburdened in a way I didn't think I'd ever seen before. For a moment, I just watched him breathe. There was something terrifying about how natural it felt. Like this was a version of us that had always existed under the surface, waiting for permission. Eventually, he stirred, his brow furrowed slightly, then his eyes opened. For half a second, I saw panic flash across his face. Then he remembered. "Oh," he murmured. His voice was rough, low. Hey, I replied. He didn't pull away. That felt important. Instead, he glanced down at where our hands still rested together, then back up at me. "So, that wasn't a dream, right?" I smiled faintly. "Pretty sure." He let out a breath that sounded like relief. "Good." We lay there a little longer. neither of us quite ready to sit up and make things official by moving. When he finally did shift, he was careful, like he didn't want to break something fragile. "Can I ask something kind of stupid?" he said, sitting up and rubbing his face. "Always," I said. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Like, really okay?" I sat up too, leaning back against the headboard. "Yeah, I am. Are you?" He thought about it. "I think so. I'm overwhelmed and scared, and my brain is already trying to overanalyze everything." He huffed out a quiet laugh. "But I don't feel wrong. And that feels huge." "That's a good sign," I said. "Yeah." He looked at me again, more serious now. "I meant what I said last night, about not wanting to lie anymore, especially to you." "I know," I said, "and I'm not going anywhere." Something in his expression softened at that, like a knot loosening. We made coffee. Bad coffee. The kind that tastes more like survival than enjoyment. We sat on the dock with our mugs, legs dangling over the edge, the lake stretched out in front of us like a blank slate. "This is the part where we talk about what happens next, isn't it?" he said. "Eventually," I replied. "Does it have to be right now?" He smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." We talked anyway, but not about labels or future plans. We talked about stupid things. About a road trip we'd always joked about taking. About how terrible the couch had been. About how weird it felt knowing something big had changed even though everything looked the same. At one point, he nudged my shoulder with his. "You know, this doesn't magically fix everything, right?" "I do," I said, "but it changes how we face it." He nodded, quiet for a moment. Then, almost casually, "Can I do something?" I glanced at him. "What?" He hesitated, just a second, then leaned in and pressed a soft, tentative kiss to my cheek. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It barely lasted a heartbeat, but it landed like a promise. He pulled back immediately, eyes searching my face. "Okay?" I swallowed. "Yeah. More than okay." His smile this time was real. Open. A little amazed. We packed up a few hours later, the cabin returning to silence as if it were keeping our secret. The drive back felt different. Not awkward. Not heavy. Just aware. As the city came back into view, Evan glanced over at me. "Hey," he said. "Thanks for giving me the space to figure this out." I met his gaze. "Thanks for trusting me enough to tell me." We didn't have everything figured out, but we had honesty. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The city felt louder when we got back. Traffic. Sirens. People everywhere. All of them living their lives like nothing monumental had happened in a tiny cabin by a lake a few hours away. Evan dropped me off in front of my building, the engine idling while neither of us reached for the door handle. "So," he said, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. "This is the part where things get real." I nodded. "Yeah." He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was committing my face to memory. "I don't want this to turn into something we only talk about when we're alone," he said. "I don't want to pretend Monday through Friday and be honest only on weekends." My chest tightened, in a good way this time. "Then don't," he swallowed. "I'm not ready to tell everyone. I don't even know what I'd say. But I want to stop lying in small ways. The jokes. The assumptions I don't correct. The stuff that eats at you slowly." "That's fair," I said. "This isn't all or nothing." He nodded, relieved. "And you. I don't want you feeling like you're waiting on me. Or stuck." I reached over and rested my hand on his arm. "I'm choosing this. Not waiting." That seemed to steady him. "Can I come up?" he asked, then quickly added. "Not for anything. I just don't want to say goodbye yet." I smiled. "Yeah, you can come up." Inside my apartment, everything looked exactly the same and completely different. We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, both of us a little unsure now that we were back in real life. The safety bubble of the weekend had popped, replaced by something more fragile but more meaningful. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and chicken out, he admitted. Then don't wake up alone, I said gently. He laughed, then sobered. Can I kiss you? The question mattered more than the act. Yes, I said. This time, when he leaned in, it wasn't tentative. It wasn't rushed either, just intentional. Soft at first, then a little deeper, like he was testing the reality of it, making sure it didn't disappear. His hand came up to my jaw, warm and steady. When we pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I should have told you sooner, he whispered. Maybe, I said, but you told me when you were ready. That counts. He stayed over that night. Nothing wild, nothing cinematic, just us, tangled together, learning how to exist in this new truth. In the morning, he kissed me goodbye before work like it was the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't easy after that. There were awkward moments, long conversations, times he pulled back, times I had to remind myself this was new for him too. But there was honesty now, real honesty. And every time he chose me, it felt like something solid was being built. Months later, sitting on that same couch, he took my hand and said, I think I'm ready to stop explaining myself to people who don't deserve explanations. I smiled. Yeah? Yeah, he said. I just want to be with you, out in the open, whatever that looks like. And that's the thing about that weekend. I went to clear my head. He came to tell the truth. And somehow, in the middle of all that honesty, we found something real enough to last.